Sound check. Check one, check two.
Hello, Trineice. Oh, we lost you there for a second. You there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yes,
That's me saying, hey, and Zoom not liking that, right? That's that original sound feature that needs to be on for lessons, right?
That's right. And the moment I heard a glitch there, I thought, oh no, the technical issues.
No,
I'm just going to turn you up a
no,
little bit at my end. Yeah, you had me nervous there for a second. It is
that's
so.
all right.
It is so good to see you. The last time I saw you, we were having dinner together.
Yes.
Here in Brisbane.
Best day. Yes.
Yeah, with you and your dad, which
great.
is lovely to meet your dad for the first time, and yeah, and I'm going to use this sort of to kick into for you to be able to introduce yourself for people who have never met you before, which will be a few, but I know you've been on the show many times before. But when we were having dinner, you told me that you had just been made an offer to a really major musical faculty in the US, and now you can reveal all because you are working there now.
All right.
Where are you?
So I'm officially the new chair of the Ensemble Department at Berkeley College Music here in Boston, which is where I'm Zooming to you from today. It's been so great. It's been such a great transition, from being solely voice teaching to running a department that literally holds, we do 408 this semester sections of ensembles. Yes. So
crazy.
There are more than 500 ensembles, but we're only running 408
only
this semester.
Only.
You
paired it back.
We pared it back a little bit, we didn't want to give people too many options, so we decided that we cut a little bit here and there, but it's fabulous. It's so great because to be in the center of this type of music. This type of music school that is home to so many different musical styles. It's like for the first time ever, it's like, oh, this is a real music school, meaning has music from all over the world represented, almost equally represented. And I think that's just the coolest thing ever. And I'm so happy to be a part of it now.
When you say ensemble, that can represent a number of different things. Can you give us some examples of the ensembles that you're looking after?
Yeah, we have everything from small ensembles of from an organ trio to a singer-songwriter trio to major productions. Like we have, like this semester is a Lady Gaga ensemble, and it features 15 dancers, the band that's about 20, huge, massive. We have the Asia Rising Ensemble. We have the Indian Music Ensemble. We have a gazillion jazz ensembles. We have a bunch of mixed pop and mixed styles ensembles. So literally it can be anything from 3 people all the way to 80 people, including the orchestras. And wait, if that wasn't enough, we even have turntable ensembles, DJ. What you say? Yes. So when I tell you think of it, we have bluegrass ensembles, Americana.
Some of the
what you need.
Some of the coolest stuff I've seen come out of Berkeley is ensemble stuff. It's where there's a meeting of musical minds for a particular project, and there's a Christian band, actually a Christian duo called Out of the Grey. They were back in the 90s, and they were a Berkeley couple, and anyway, I love them. Yeah,
a lot of powerhouses came out of Berkeley. It's a great place. It's got its own vibe. It's awesome. It's pretty cool.
but it wasn't Berkeley that brought you to Australia. It was
Right.
your own thing, which is called Soul Ingredients, right? And we've had you on the show here, and we've talked about a whole range of things, because you've written a book on So You Want to Sing, gospel, and which I've read cover to cover, and great text, and recommend it to everyone. But I had the opportunity I've heard you speak at other events, and next year we'll be speaking at the same event again. I mean, how many times have you presented at ICVT?
I probably have presented at every one that I've been to, so probably about 4.
I've presented. This will be my 4th as well. I started in Paris, then did Brisbane, then did, what was the next one? Stockholm, but I missed Vienna. Did you go to Vienna?
I went to Vienna, but I missed Paris. Brisbane was my first one. So
right, okay, so there you go. So
anyway, the Robinsons are representing. That's what you're saying. In other words,
we'll both be presenting in Toronto. So I've had the great pleasure and privilege of hearing you present before, but not at one of your all-day workshops, which I did the day prior. No, it was the day before we had dinner.
Yeah.
And you presented your Soul Ingredients, all-day workshop. And there was something that you said, and I want to kind of deep dive into this today, if we could. You talked about, this question that gets asked so often, and I saw Kelly Morrison is in the chat. Hi, Kelly, and hello to everyone else. All of our regulars, Rebecca and Nebe and Linda and Sharon and Sing, they're all there. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
One of the questions we get asked, and the reason I mentioned Kelly is because Kelly has asked this question before. What should I sing? What is my voice suited to? And you talked about that in quite a bit of detail, and some of the stories you provided I thought were really insightful. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to really unpack it, because you're able to approach the topic from a pedagogical standpoint, and I kind of want to be able to do that today. So I wonder if you could just open that discussion for us about this idea of what should I sing? What's me?
Yeah, well, out of Soul Ingredients, we think about it from the standpoint, or should I say, I think about it from the standpoint of what is your soul? Who are you? Who are you? And what do you have to offer? And so we think about what is your soul expression? And soul expression, particularly in the context of pedagogy, is the unapologetic, passionate communication of who you are, what you believe, and how you feel about it. So who you are, what you believe, and how you feel about it. And the reason why this becomes important, because we are storytellers. And what we're doing is we are communicating our most vulnerable moments sometimes, particularly if you subscribe to this vulnerable art form. And as a result, the part that makes you the soul singer is the part that allows you to want to talk about and want to share a piece of who you are with people that you care about. And hopefully you're singing to people that you care about. And those people are listening to you because they care about you. This is a communal event. So as a result, you want to think about it. What do I represent? What do I believe? What do I care about? What do I want to advocate for? And so when I talk about soul expression, I'm saying, for me, my soul expression happens to be love, family, community, and legacy. So that's everything that you see me sing about in any of my albums, when I'm singing on stage, it's all going to boil down to those topics about love, legacy, family. And the reason why is because these are things that are important to me. You
Yeah.
know, one of the examples that I had is I had another student actually whose soul expression was sadness. And it was sadness because when growing up, she was unable to express sadness and anger. And so all of the songs that she sings now is about sadness and it's about anger and it's about sorrow, but not because she's a sorrowful person, but because she feels empowered to say, you know what? It's okay to be sad. It's okay for life to be tough and you want to tell somebody about it or about themselves in the meantime. So these are those things that when I'm telling people, it's actually even a part of my intake form for when you're taking voice lessons. I need to know your soul expression. What is it? I can teach you any song. I can train you with any song. But what I really want to do is train you to use your voice in the way that you want to beyond the instrument. What's your soul?
I want to come right back to the very beginning of the tagline that you gave us at the very beginning. I want to talk about the word unapologetic, because I can't.
Yeah.
You've because I've heard you say that phrase a number of times now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's precede, like the framing of that phrase is, for me, I hear that word. I hear the word unapologetic. Why is that word so important in this process?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about vulnerability in society is this is something that we don't allow ourselves to be. We don't allow ourselves to feel like we have the authority to speak our mind, to speak our heart. A lot of times, you know, even in my own classes that I've had for teacher training classes, I've had people do assignments where they're telling someone how they feel about them. And they always start with, I'm sorry. They say, I'm sorry, I don't want to scare you. I'm not dying, but I just need to tell you how I feel. Like, what is that? Why do we feel the need to have a disclaimer about who we are and about what we want to say? So to be able to speak your truth in a manner that you don't feel like you have to hide, you have to apologize. I'm sorry for being so happy. I'm sorry for being so angry. I'm sorry for being so loud. I'm sorry for being so soft. Unapologetic. That's who you are. You're beautiful. And that's the kinds of things that we want to just put into our music.
Yesterday here in Brisbane, and you might have seen this particular photographer's artwork where he fills the landscape, and it's always on a landscape or out the front of a big world-known architecture with naked bodies. Have you ever seen? Anyway, he's a world-renowned photographer / artist. There is nothing sexualized about this, but for example, on our, did you go across the Story Bridge when you were here in Brisbane just recently? It's our big bridge. Well, they closed the bridge for about 4 hours on Sunday morning before 8 o'clock, and he filled the bridge with 5,000 volunteers who all got their kit off, and it's a thing. It's a thing. And I was listening to some interviews on the radio this morning, dropping my daughter off to school and listening to some people ring in and saying, I was one of the 5,000, and them talking about this wonderfully freeing thing to do to get your kid off, and it's where I'm going with this is
no judgment. So
that is not for me. That is, but these people, because a lot of there's no prerequisite for your body type or your skin color or anything like that. It's just you have to be willing to walk out onto the bridge. And the point being is these people are doing it in a very unapologetic way.
Yeah.
And I do wonder whether for many of us, taking that step of vulnerability would be like, for me, taking my kid off and walking out into the middle of the Story Bridge with 5,000 other like-minded people. And I think that's part of the challenge, isn't it? Is that to give our voice the freedom to be heard is so vulnerable.
Well, the interesting thing is just like you said, that going out onto the bridge like that is not something that you would do. And this is important to know, that just being vulnerable in singing is not something that everybody should or could do. And the reason why I say it that way is because I'm reminded about people, like there are certain people who have experienced traumas that, may not want to relive them in that vulnerable way where it's scary and it's not safe for them to do so. But this is a charge for people that are willing to take that step, to honor who they are and recognize and realize they have something to say. All of this stems from the Black music tradition, where you think about a soul singer. Why is a soul singer so compelling? What is it about it? What is it about their music? What is it about the gospel singer that can stir the soul of the people that are listening? It's this unapologetic nature to be yourself. It's an unapologetic nature to have the charge and have the function of communication, of storytelling, the responsibility to uplift the people that are in your presence, to use music to uplift yourself, to gather people together, to center people, to be someone's voice. There's a particular charge as a singer within this cultural context that allows and normalizes the idea of being vulnerable. Why? Because we know that within my testimony, there's healing. And within my testimony, there's healings of others. So, because somebody can say, I know that. I've been through that also. And you saying that out loud makes me feel better, makes me feel like I'm not alone. So that's what we're using music functionally to do. And that's what this process of soul expression is really calling for.
What role does self-awareness play in this process? Because I think there's got to be a certain level of, for us to really dive deep into the discovery of our soul ingredient, there's got to be, dare I say, a capacity for self-reflection, doesn't it? And self-awareness. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that there's a wide range, because this can be as simple as what makes you happy. So I've asked, I don't teach a lot of kids, but when I do, I still ask them, what is your soul expression? What brings you joy? What makes you happy when you're singing it? What makes you feel good? And let's do those things. Let's do those things that give you life. So it doesn't have to be as deep and philosophical as, the story of life. But at the same time, what it needs to be is forgiving.
Yeah. It
needs for you to be able to be in a place that allows you to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
To say, I like this because I like it. The end.
I like it because I like it.
Because I like it. I mean, instead of having some sort of dissertation around everything else. So I think sometimes we don't want to make things too complicated. But even though we know that sometimes being vulnerable is complicated. But the easiest step is deciding that I'm going to be intentional.
Yeah.
That I know that my voice, it matters. My voice matters. Like the fact that we have to say that and embody that tells you where our society is. you know, but yet when we're, as a teacher, we're teaching and we're like, sing with your soul, sing it like you mean it. Well, if we can't do that in real life, how are you going to actually do that? I mean, okay, take more acting classes, but even the best actors embody where they are, right?
Yeah.
So they're believable. So my point within the context of training is how do we normalize, but then also music who you are? How do we music your sound, the sound of your voice when you're happy? How do we music your smile? How do we music your cry? How does the textures affect how we perceive how you feel? How do we create exercises that allow you to sustain those sounds? You know, these are the things, this is how the pedagogy of it comes into the soul expression part. Because if you happen to be one of those animated people, you know, I'm an animated person and I'm trying to calm it down because I don't want the Zoom to go crazy. But, you know, but what happens is when I'm going, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I'm not thinking about, am I flipping? Am I switching now? Am I changing my face? No. No, yes. Okay, well, I don't know what you want me to do. Well, I guess I can go somewhere else. Like that, that type of inflection is a part of my personality.
Yeah. Huh?
You know, and that sound has a sound for me. And even if your personality is not so animated, you know, what you'd be looking at is you'd be looking at, well, what do I sound like? How does the person on the phone that does not see me know how I feel? What shifts? Is it my tone? Is it the speed of my voice? Is it the texture of my voice? There's something that's different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's that part that's the deep dive, that's the reflectiveness that then moves into the music that makes it uniquely yours.
At the risk of being reductionist, I want to unpack the word intentionality with and accounting for what you've just shared. I wonder whether you can step us through a process of discovery, if you could, of a soul ingredient. You've got a student with you.
Yep.
And you're wanting to lead them along a pathway of discovery and unlocking this in an intentional way. What would you do with that person?
So the first step is we start a journal. And in that journal, you are now taking notes about yourself. It is your opportunity to really sit down and think about, well, how do I use my voice? I use an app called Nail the Pitch, and it's a pitch tracking app. And I'll tell my students to download this app and just turn it on while you're talking to your friends. Turn it on first thing in the morning. Turn it on before you go to sleep so that you can hear how the pitch of your voice changes, not only throughout the day, but how it changes depending on who you're talking to, how it changes depending on what you're talking about, and start to notate like, oh, okay. So for me, when I'm excited, the pitch in my voice goes all the way up. I'm lighter in my voice. Oh my gosh, I'm going into more of a head dominant space or CT dominant space. When I'm going up and excited, I'm energized. When I say energetic, I don't stand still, then you know. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. So
I know.
but all of this contributes to my sound.
Yeah.
I'm not still. On the contrary, when I am upset, I'm actually quiet. So for me, I'm not one that gets loud. You know, when I'm up, it's like I'm trying to process what's happening. And this is what, like, I need you to just give me a minute, because I don't understand. I don't even know how to respond to what you're saying. So the pitch of my voice goes low. It kind of cracks a little bit. You know, there's energy, but I'm also holding back in the same way. And so also when you start to notate and start to recognize what's normal, I'm always smiling. I'm always smiling. My sound is bright. I'm always smiling. You know, so if all of a sudden, you know, I'm using my cheekbones, but you don't see my teeth, then it turns into like a crying sound. Like, I can't believe you. And that's what that sound sounds like normally in my body. So that when I'm trying to sing, I can have this sound. You know, versus when I'm trying to sing, I can have this sound because I'm happy. And that's what I sound like when I'm happy. You know, so it's a part of like normalizing what is what is normal? What is normal? And it's specific to me. Don't cry like you cry. I mean, who's going to tell you, oh, you're not crying hard enough? I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Right? When we're really intentional about communicating what it is we have to say, we don't stop for permission. So you know, when we're really ready,
yeah,
we no longer have the desire to ask for permission. Like, I got to get this off my chest. I've been holding back. That's that unapologetic. It's the conviction that you believe it. It's the conviction that you feel like, again, I sound like a broken record. What you have to say is worthy and needs to be said.
Yeah.
But that's the process. So you document that,
yeah.
And then you try to choose subjects that evoke that state of happiness or joy or sorrow or whatever it is that you want to say, instead of picking a song and then trying to see where you fit into it. No, what do you want to say? Well, let's find the song that says what it is that I want to say. Because otherwise what happens is that if you pick the song first, then you're going to be trapped into trying to articulate somebody else's story.
Yeah.
Versus you having your own story that you're just showing like, oh, this person is saying exactly what I wanted to say.
And this is the point I wanted to really draw out. And this is what I love about this approach is I'm often saying to singers, your voice every voice deserves to be heard. And every voice has a unique story to tell. Unique. No other human being on the planet has your story. And that's what this approach really draws out, is the unique story. And I think that's something that each of us should treasure, is that unique story. And for some people, that's been a wonderfully fortunate and gifted story. And for other people, it's been a story of heartache and tragedy and hardship. How do we refine that to make it palatable for public consumption?
Mm-hmm.
The word, actually hearing myself use the word palatable, which is just the word that came to mind, that's not really what I mean. But how do we package it for human consumption? Because that is an important transactional space, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's easier than we realize. You know, I think sometimes we try to make everything a process, but I guarantee you that the humanity in people are always present, even if they don't show it.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody that you don't know is crying on the sidewalk, you turn. Even if you don't know, and there's a problem, and for some, depending on how sensitive you are, a little bit of you that hurts with them, and you hope that they're going to be okay. In the same way that when you hear somebody laughing, it just starts making you laugh. You know so this is why I'm saying that there's some things that we don't have to make science. We just have to make honest. You know, the process is going to be for you to start with what you feel is safe to share. This makes me happy. This makes me smile. So I'm going to sing about this because it makes me feel good. And then when you feel good, it's going to make everybody else feel good. Just like when you start smiling, everybody else starts smiling too. It's contagious. Laugh is contagious, right?
Yeah.
Yawning, it's contagious.
Yeah.
Somebody starts yawning, you're like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of primal connection that we have that we just don't tap into because we're trying to be calculated.
Yeah. What are some of the common barriers you observe to this? Because there will be people watching and going, yeah, I hear you, and I want to do it, but I keep coming up against a wall. What are some of the common barriers, and if you will, and how might we overcome some of those barriers?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few barriers, but they all have to do with the idea of not feeling like you deserve to take up space.
Yeah.
Now that shows up in different ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So it can show up in the person who may have been in a family dynamic or a social cultural dynamic in which being loud was deemed, not posh and deemed like, no, you're insignificant or you're uneducated if you are outwardly expressive. That's a thing. And so you also have the idea of growing up in a social culture where, or a family dynamic where you actually couldn't be loud. Oh, be quiet, So there are some, what I call some self demons, these subconscious demons that are inside that are saying, nope, don't do that. Nope, don't do that. So having to give yourself permission and that's some self-work. And then there's the folks that know that these are the things that have happened to me and I'm ready to break through. And a part of the training, particularly in Soul Ingredients, is the release. Is actually allowing yourself to take up space. And you can tell how comfortable you are by your ability to, to sound out. I'm not going to even say sing out, to make loud sounds out of your body and allow sound to just pour and flow and energy to just pour and flow. Like that takes practice if that is not something that you normally do. So that's one of those things. The second thing is, again, another cultural aspect where you're taught to compartmentalize what you can talk about, and so it feels like you are breaking tradition. Yeah, and that's a challenge. Yeah. It's so much easier to do when you surround yourself with other people that are that are ready to be open, just like life, right? When you're ready to shift into another place, this is why support groups are a thing, because when you are with people that are ready and that are willing to be there in your journey, it is much easier to be vulnerable and share because you feel safe. So finding a safe space, I try to make my voice studio or my online studio when I'm teaching online a safe space. Making sure that you're going into your car if that's your safe space, making sure that you're waiting until no one's there if that's your safe space. And I say that knowing as someone who had to overcome that. For me, even growing in a social culture that was extroverted, that is charismatic, I found myself, especially when I started training to be a singer, I started being afraid of practicing. I started being afraid of sounding bad. I found myself practicing in my home alone and still being like, are the neighbors gonna hear me? So these are those things that you have to catch. You have to challenge. You have to decide. You hear me? You have to decide to overcome and work towards doing that. So it is not, there are going to be barriers, I promise. But anytime you're doing something new, there's going to be challenges. Is it worth it for you? You're worth it. We're worth it. My stepfather used to say, we need you. So I always say, he would say, get better, I need you, anytime we were sick. So I changed that slogan to say, sing your soul, the world needs you.
Yeah.
That's where that slogan came from.
Yeah.
Sing your soul, the world needs you. We need to be healed. We need that sharing. We need someone else to say, I'm going through this too. Can you be strong enough to take that step for you and the person that needs to hear your voice?
Yeah. Yeah. As we come, it won't surprise you to know that we're quickly approaching the end of our hangout. But I'm also given to recognizing in a level of measure that we do have to also, I guess, in the exploration of what we've been talking about today, we run the risk of, if we completely abandon ourselves to emotional release and expression, that there can be a cost to the voice at a physical level. How do we reconcile those two points?
There was a class that I taught probably about, I don't know, must have been about 10 years ago now. I was doing a teacher training course in the beginning of my Soul Ingredients journey, after it was branded. And I was talking about, there were at the time songs that I didn't sing because it would make me cry. Mm-hmm. And I would try to stay away from those songs. Mm-hmm. And one of the teachers that were the participants said, I wonder does your throat close because you're trying to stop yourself from crying? Mm. And it was after that I said, I did the same thing. And I started practicing the idea of release and allow, so that I'm not holding back. I'm not holding oh my gosh, where my body is tensing. What does it feel like to release emotion and sound at the same time? That's something that we don't train, right? But what if that became normalized? A lot of the issues that we have physiologically is that we're trying to create all of this pressure. And if there is blockage, you're going to get this massive subglottic pressure and this massive pressing of the vocal folds trying to hold together. But what if we were flowing? What if we were saying, and we're opening our mouth, and the back of the tongue is flexible and the mouth is open, the body is engaged, everything is fluid and moving. That then would be the way to help you get through the process where you're equating releasing emotion, releasing sound, releasing emotional sounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really hear you on that. I want to add to that with the reflection that some people don't yet have the technical foundation to release. And I wonder whether
or the emotional safety.
Well, yeah,
to
but
release,
I wonder whether
right?
you already had enough physical awareness and also foundational skill to be able to go, I need to release. I find with my students, one of the first things I do with students is body alignment and and the ability to be able to have a dynamic body state that hasn't got a natural leaning towards tension. But that, for most people, I find has to be learnt. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
But not only has it have to be learned, but it has to be, what has to be learned is the awareness.
Yeah.
Not even the workaround, right? And a part of that self-study, that paying attention, you know, I mean, if you start to pay attention, regardless as to what training or no training you had, if you start to pay attention, you can feel your throat closing.
Yeah.
Right? You can feel pressure build up into your chest. You can feel like this is squeezing.
Yeah.
You can feel those things. And if you pay attention even more, you can start to feel when it's about to happen if you're focused. Right? But you have to turn on that awareness.
You can, but not everyone, if I might be so bold, not everyone, people might feel it, but not everyone can then go, or I am now going to release that.
Release.
And that's the technical step that I wonder whether some people do need to take in order to achieve the status, the state that you are quite rightly advocating for. So
here's the conundrum with that, right? Is, you know, in my culture, particularly in the Black church, there's not a lot of formal training, right? As a normalcy. But what you do have is culturally formal training, right? So you're around people or singers that you learn how to, just by way of doing. If every time I do that, my throat closes and it hurts, then you're either going to talk to someone like, man, that hurts. Well, then they'll say, oh, open your mouth. Or they'll say, if they're going to say anything, well, don't do that. Or the person will figure out how to do it without hurting themselves. You know, when you start to hear people that are self-taught, you know, they'll go, oh, yeah, I just do it that way because that's the way it come out. And I could do it all the time. You know, so I'm saying that to say, you know, and I say this as a trained pedagogue, voice teacher, straight up voice science, you know, I always want to balance between what does pedagogy do? It helps you direct what you are doing. Right. But there's still some, if I touch this hot thing, I'm going to jump before I even know that it's fire. Like if I know the term, right? So allowing your body and allowing the awareness by watching, you know, podcasts like this, by going to being around people that knows that allows you to know that, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. You know, it doesn't have to do that. You can do it another way. You can find another way that works for you. You can find another approach to deliver the same intention that may be a different set of notes for you. You know, so I think that's where the balance is. And I fear more than anything, more than me fearing a person that has not had the experience of formal lessons or getting with someone technically trying this on their own. What I fear is someone imitating a sound that's not their own because they think that that's the sound that's valid.
And you and I, it's funny because we're, in one sense, we're two sides of the same coin because you do, you know, black gospel and whatever, and the culture I grew up in is white church contemporary music, and we've both written on this subject. And the way I came to it was from observing, you know, singers who were just opening their mouth and hoping for the best. And there was certainly a lot of emotional connection, you know, spiritual connection going on, but yet those voices were still often running aground due to a lack of technical foundation. And so it's not either or. It's both
Right.
and.
It's both.
It's both. And I just wanted to add in that thought at the end there to go, it is both. It has to be both.
It's funny. I tell, using that concept, one of the things that I tell people, especially coming from the church, especially coming from any of things that are, self-taught, is that I'm taking you from a place of hope to a place of trust. Like, there's no more, I'm going to hope this come out.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm going to give you some strategies that's going to allow you to trust what's going to go out, what's going to come out. So, I mean, it is, like you're saying, it is both.
It comes back to something I say here on the channel quite a bit, and that is, if you know more, you can sing more. In my observation,
is so true.
In my observation, knowledge has never damaged anyone's process. It's only ever enriched people's,
well, except for when your knowledge becomes the barrier. Yeah. You know too much, and then so you won't do anything, which was actually my experience.
Yeah.
The more I became known about, the more I knew about my voice and going into the technical side of it, it actually limited what I was able to do.
Can I tell you?
Because I was like, because I was like, oh, I got to do it right.
Yeah.
Then right became the it.
Can I tell you a story in exactly the same way, but from the different angle? And that is, way back when I first started teaching, I had a Christian church singer. She was a Maori lady, a New Zealand Indigenous woman. Fabulous singer, like amazing voice, and like from an emotional connection point, the whole she had it down. She really did, but her voice had run aground because she had some pathologies that she actually refused to deal, because she had some reasons that I won't go into. But the point being is that actually was her barrier. Her barrier was wanting to not sacrifice the emotional aspect to take up the technical. And so I think it comes back to this.
And both. I got an even better one in the sense that I have my uncle.
Yeah.
Look, let me make it even personal, right? So this is the other side of it in my culture as well, right? You talk about, I don't want to change it. My uncle had like laryngitis or something, and I was like, hey, my uncle is a bishop, started the church, our family church, whatever. And I was like, you got to take care of your voice, because if you don't, you're going to stay husky like that, like James Cleveland. He said, oh, I hope I don't ever get well. Like, he wanted that sound, So, I mean, I'm saying that to say, yes, there's always going to be all these different dynamics. But as you're saying, being informed enough to make the changes, and being informed by people that can help you understand that you don't have to sacrifice emotion.
No, you don't.
In order to be responsible for your instrument. You can be compelling and responsible.
And good technique should empower that.
Right. And it's making sure that you just are with someone that can help guide you through the technique that's also tied to the emotional expression. So that it's not, this is technique and this is emotion. This is technically emotive.
Togetherness.
Yeah. Togetherness.
I love hanging out with you. And it's always good to have you on the show, and thanks for diving deep into that subject. And hey, we got through the show without the show falling over technically.
Yeah. See, look, it was intention, right? Something, even the cyber ethers needed us to have this conversation.
Trineice, you're a champion, and I am so pleased for you that your appointment to Berkeley is so well deserved, and a real credit to you and all the work you've done over the last couple of decades that I haven't known you for 2 decades, but I've known you for a long time.
For a long time.
Let's just say a long
Over 10
time.
years. We can do that.
We can do that. And they're so fortunate to have you, and I'm so pleased to know that you're settling into that new role, and as massive as it is.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it as always.
And I hope to have you back in the new year, and we'll catch up together in Toronto.
In Toronto.
Hey,
yes.
Toronto.
All right, love.
Thanks, Trineice.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Take care.
Well, there you go, folks. I mean, awesome, right? She's awesome, and she is a good friend, and it is good to hang out with her and have her bring her expertise, but expertise kind of doesn't wrap it up, right? Like, it's this sense of lived expertise. You know, she's really out there practicing what she preaches. She's walking the walk, and so good to have Trineice. Trineice is our second last special guest for the year. We've got one more in a few weeks. Professor Brian Gill will be joining us, also a long-term friend of the channel and a personal friend. I'm looking forward to having Brian on in a few weeks. Next week, we're going to do a mini topic, so make sure you don't miss that. And also, if I remember, we'll talk more about the new memberships we have here on the channel. And a special thank you to everyone. And I forgot to mention Dean earlier. Dean signed up for membership to support the channel. So thank you. You can hit the join button below if that's something you'd like to do. Just helps to support the channel. And I very much look forward to seeing you next week for the mini topic. Have a great week, everyone. And I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.